Welcome to the Brooklyn Podcast with yours truly, Anthony Puccio, my co-host, Colin Helwig. Colin, we're now a week removed from the NBA draft. We're a couple days removed now from into NBA free agency. Is Sean Marks cooking? Are the Nets doing well? How are you feeling right now about everything? The draft, free agency. What's on the forecast right now?
Yeah, I mean, about everything, it's a lot to take in. A lot's happened, since we last got together. Why don't we start with the draft? We'll keep it chronological. When the draft happened, I thought Lucas Kaplan in an article put it very well, saying that he left with more questions than answers. And truth be told, that is the exact same way that I felt. And, I don't think it's I'm going to be rooting for these guys, and I can kind of see the vision, passing. How did the Indiana Pacers just get to the finals? They were an emphasis team-oriented team. A lot of guys who could handle the ball. Everyone was a willing passer. Speed with Nolan too. Like I think I see what they were looking at, but what concerned me out of the draft was not so much the reaching, because you got to trust the team's intel. We don't know anything. These guys haven't hit the court yet. We can only judge on mocks, and every year there's guys that in a redraft would have gone up or down. But what concerned me was a lot of the words that Sean Marks was using, saying high character and competitive. And I believe he even said play the right way.
Yeah.
I don't know about, I think these things are important, but I also think shooting is important. And I think being athletic is important. And I think having a tight handle on the rock is important. And it's my fear that with some of these guys, the Nets valued the mental and culture kind of things and not the physical gifts. And at the end of the day, this is a physical game. That said, love the Drake Powell pick, but some of the other guys, I'll put it this way, because I want to be positive. We just made 5 19-year-olds just had, the night of their careers. So I look forward to having those questions removed. I look forward to being answered and, seeing what the scouting department saw, because you got to trust them. That's all we can do at this point.
Yeah. I think you watch a season like this where they lose 56 games, and I think a lot of fans are looking at things like, and including myself, maybe even yourself, that we endured this season to end up with Yegor Dem, right? And it's no disrespect to him. It has no disrespect to the Nets front office. Like, they clearly had a vision. They, like you said, they really, really, really prioritized this high character, like good culture individuals. We had hit on it in past episodes. Like, they didn't want anybody that they were going to draft that's going to change their culture or change their identity and things of that nature. Again, whether I'm reading into that quote too much or not, it is how they feel about everybody they bring in. If they draft, if they trade, whatever it might be. And this kind of goes with the Sean Marks control aspect, where I feel like we can't say it whether it's a failure or a success, but you draft 4 guards that are above 6'5". They're all 19 years old, outside of Danny Wolf, who's a big man. But you draft 4 guards. Drake Powell, he could kind of be a 3-and-D guy. So if you say 3 point guards who cannot shoot the ball, like you said, in a league where we're chucking 40, 50 threes a game, that's the easy thing to take away from this. But the second thing that I'm looking at is, like, the Nets really did not prioritize American talent, and that's fine. Like, I looked at a lot of quotes from Jordi Fernandez when Adam Silver announced that the NBA was trying to form a league with FIBA in Europe. And Jordy said, like, the USA game and the European game are so beautiful and pure in their own ways. The best way that we could do that is by combining them and evolving the game by putting them together. And that's kind of how I felt about this draft. Again, for better or worse. But look, you walk away from that night. I hopped on the New York Post after that draft, and I was so underwhelmed. That's the best word that I could describe. It was like, you got a bunch of guys who can't shoot the ball outside of Drake Powell. You got a bunch of guards who are going to play a lot of different positions, and their best trait is that they can pass the ball. Right now, the Brooklyn Nets don't have anybody to pass the ball to outside of what we assume is Cam Thomas and now Michael Porter Jr. So, yeah, you could play fast. Yeah, you could spread the ball around. But at the end of the day, like you could have the high character and high culture guys. But if they can't score the rock or they can't hit an open three, what good are they? And at 19 years old, we're looking at a long rebuild here. Like we're not this. They drafted a whole core of 5 players. We're not looking at a 2-year rebuild, a 3-year rebuild. Like they're 19. Again, they're going to need 3-4 years before we can even say anything about these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Summer League will be interesting. The nicknames that some of the people threw out, I was actually pretty impressed with some of the ones that the fans came up. I don't know if we want to. I put a couple down that stood out to me. The United Nations Gardens Chasing. That's the international pool. Also, the foreign assets from Cash. I think that's a good one. Underrated one. I like this one a lot. The Marksmen, like Sean Marks.
We've had that before, but I got to get Barry.
I haven't seen that one yet. Yeah. That was Barry Popik on Twitter. And then Netstige Worldwide, Adam Orecchio. I mean, if it's Step Brothers reference, I'm gonna bring it up.
Can we say the FIBA Nets too? FIBA Nets for myself.
FIBA Nets.
I'm throwing that into the fire, but I think that I kind of think like Cash is. I think Cash won that one. The foreign assets.
Foreign assets, yeah. It sounds tough. It sounds like you're talking about like a nuclear warhead or something. I just watched Oppenheimer, so that's where I'm at.
Collin, I'm looking at Junio Rudy's comment here, and he said, I think if Malawach was the pick at number 8, this class would have looked a lot different. Demon pick really set the mood for Nets fans. And I really feel that because on this show we really talked a lot about Malawach. I literally had a dream that they drafted him, but I was looking at that draft and saying, if they could come away with Jeremiah Fears or Malawach, then it's a win. That video comes out of Rich Paul. I don't know why Rich Paul would want that out there, but is there anything to make of that where he's on the phone and he's saying that his client was determined to get to Phoenix? The Nets are picking 2 spots ahead of them. Is there like anything to read about that? Like, or do you think that Sean Marks really just wanted Yegor? Like, was that?
I think Sean Marks really just wanted Yegor. I don't know I saw that video and I just kind of like chuckled at it. Like, I don't think Rich Paul is the puppet master behind Sean Marks. And he was talking with the Phoenix Suns owner who. The Phoenix Suns are running an absolute clown show over there. So, I mean, I would bet you, like, who's calling Rich Paul and saying, like, hey, I really want this guy. Like, make it happen for me. Like, what are you doing? I guess I just didn't get, like, any of that.
He had a big hand in that Ben Simmons to Brooklyn trade.
Yeah? Well, that sucks. I wish he didn't.
Yeah. But, I mean, again.
I mean, do you know more than I do?
I don't know relationship with Sean Marks, but I know that with that Ben Simmons, James Harden deal, he had his hands all over that. And I think a lot of it was convincing Brooklyn to take Ben. Again, that's water under the bridge at this point. We've moved on from there, but
maybe stop listening to him then would be my advice.
Right. And he's very influential. And I mean, but it also shows a new era of like agent empowerment too, where you're hearing like stuff with Ace Bailey, like whether it's good advice, bad advice, it doesn't matter. Like these grown adults that are his agents are pushing the agenda. They're pushing the narrative. These guys are getting paid in college and they're going to be the face of a lot of these organizations when they come into the NBA. So they do hold this power over them, similar to Kobe and the Nets. His agent saying, if you guys draft him, he's going right back to Italy. And Kobe admitted that was a bluff. He was like, I would have played in Jersey, no problem. I just seeing the evolution of it. I'm not saying I'm watching that video and saying, oh, the Nets didn't get Malawach because of that reason, but it's a different era in the NBA. And you watch that draft, the Nets take 5 first-round picks. There's no trades. I thought just maybe, Collin, they would bundle 2 of those picks with Cam Johnson or Claxton or something and move up somehow. I think they kind of
Yeah.
settled.
I think it's that their draft board is that they weren't trying to leverage the draft board. They weren't trying to get value picks. They had a list of guys that they really liked, and they were going to take them no matter where they were. And because other teams probably didn't have that strategy, you had guys falling to them that they wanted. So I think that's why we didn't see it. When you trade up. I feel like that happens when there's a guy who's still on the board. You really want him. One of the other teams, he's not going to make it to wherever your like later pick is down the line. So you jump up to get him. You don't just like do
Right.
it just to do it and then go, who should we take? Like it's always like a targeted thing. And I think that the Nets knew that they were kind of going on their own path, drafting some of these guys.
I purely speculated just the Nets draft strategy afterwards, and I said maybe we had heard so much about Jeremiah Fears going to Brooklyn.
Mm,
My thought process was maybe they was just so locked into guards. We hear a lot about Jordy Fernandez and his development with point guards and guards specifically that could play multiple positions. So I said to myself afterwards, maybe it was that all the guards, like the top 3-4 guards were off the board at that point. Like Dylan Harper was off,
mm,
Trey Johnson was off, and then Fears got taken right before them. If Ace Bailey doesn't go to Utah and he gets stalled out a couple of picks, they have a better shot at Fears,
mhm.
if I'm not mistaken. So I kind of feel like they went for the next available guy that they had their eyes set on. I don't know. Like I don't know if this was if they felt like this was the best player available situation, or if they were really, really insistent on going after a guard. Like we've mentioned several times, the last point guard drafted by the Nets to make an All-Star game was Kenny Anderson. They haven't had that homegrown guy, and I don't know if it matters to Sean Marks in them, but it's very clear. Like they're going to play Marks' way. They're playing positionless without like a true center, and that's assuming that Nick Claxton isn't here at the start of next season. But
Mm. Yeah.
let me see what we got. I am Bird Eagle. I am Bird Eagle says, and Colin, I'll let you answer this. Do you think that the reactions of the Nets draft room were genuine or just for their scout documentary? It was one of the more annoying things of the night for me, is what Iron Bird Eagle says. Seeing it just reminds me of the amount of draft busts with the New York Jets history. So he's saying that those cameras on the Nets war room were disingenuous, I guess, like just not genuine and like premeditated. I felt the same way. Like personally, it was very cringe.
I'm sure it's a bit of both. When we go to after the games and we do our post game press conference, and before, the Nets media, they have send like their media people down there to like ask questions that, I mean, a lot of times it's going to be like something that they would, I think it's for episodes of The Bridge, so you can throw some B-roll up there and it's Jordy saying like we're going to keep fighting and stuff like that, and questions about like the vigor of the team, stuff that's going to bring out about an answer that will make for good media. Nets media team is fantastic in my opinion, but like
Yes.
those guys are there. So like I when we're there, asking questions to write stories, they're also there working. So I think the Nets are very conscious of, using their media team and what's it called, a scout. Yeah. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if they were like, hey, really like get
Yeah,
excited. I
right.
don't think they were like now like, all right, jump this way and like high five that guy, and it's like super coordinated. But I'm sure those guys were conscious, and the whole organization's connected. And they're like, yeah, let's make some good television here.
Yeah, and look, I think good camaraderie never hurts, whether you're happy with the pick or not. Like those guys worked hard at it for months, over a year,
Hmm.
scouting these players. Like they deserve to have that moment. But yeah, Iron Bird Eagle, I do agree. It was strange. It was like because I don't know, like you said, Colin, like they know the cameras are on them, and I kind of feel like everything about the draft and a lot of things about the Nets with Sean Marks is a lot about Sean Marks and the front office. Like the front office is like the face of the organization, not a player. And I almost feel like it's calculated that way. Not saying like they're dying for attention. But even the scout series, like they're highlighting their front office without trying to reveal too much, but they want to let you know, like, we're working, we're getting this thing right. And, Nets fans and NBA fans are kind of like, well, fucking do something then, you know? Like, Colin, you and I spoke after the draft. I want you to kind of let it out. Like, how did you feel after that draft? Like, you were not happy.
Yeah, I mean, there were guys on there that I thought should have been picked. That's what I was saying earlier. For anyone who's not a first, or for anyone who is a first time listener, we were very high on Colin Malawach, and
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I thought the pick should have been. But again, it really just comes back to the things I said earlier, was that they took a lot of guys who cannot shoot the ball,
Yeah.
aren't athletic. These things I think are very important, because at the end of the day, this is a physical game. This is a game where those things matter. And I think sometimes you can outthink yourself, and it's like, oh, well, let's really try to focus in on one thing or personality characteristics. I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I think they're ancillary. I think being really good at basketball, being really good at shooting. I'm not saying the guys they picked aren't good at basketball. That's too far. But they have some weaknesses that I think are important to the game of basketball, and maybe more important than being a good guy. Daniel Jones was the nicest guy in the whole wide world. Everyone loved him. His teammates still rave about him. He was also the worst football player I've ever seen in my entire life. So I just want to make sure we're focusing on the important things here, like shooting, dribbling.
Right. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. I'm almost, to an extent, like, I'm just kind of speechless. Like,
it was confusing. There was so much build up for this. You wanted to walk away with, this is what we got, and yeah, I can really see this guy and see how this is working out. Like, no one's saying it's not going to work out, but everyone's like, so many of these guys are projects and have things that they have to work out. So it's like, we didn't get a payoff. It's like, all right, it was just kind of another step forward, and now we got to see, all right, what are you going to do with this guy? What are you going to build this guy into? You're not looking at something that no one's a polished product when they come out of the draft, but some guys are more than others. So, you look at Cooper Flagg's bad example because he was the first pick. But when you draft someone like a Cooper Flagg, you can look at him right there and be like, okay, I see what we're doing here.
Right. It's just strange. The three guards with a similar archetype. I know Nolan is fast and can get to the rim, whereas Yegor is not that type of guard. But it's strange. I spoke with Wilco after, and he was saying,
dude,
with
Yegor, he had
the
Hansen Yang pick of the night.
Yeah. Wilco won that one on the Brooklyn podcast. So I was talking to Wilco. I said, what do you? I'm hopping on this show after this, and I know enough about Yegor, but I don't know the intricacies of this guy. And he said, Pooch, I liked him late in the teens, right? And for whatever it's worth, with these mock drafts, with the Wilcos of the world, whatever. But he says, Pooch, every time that Yegor comes down the floor, he's going to need a pick. He said that's how it was at BYU, because if they're playing up on you, he's going to need a pick in order, because he's not fast enough to get you emphasize the importance that importance of beating someone off the first step, off the first dribble. He doesn't have that.
You can't teach that.
No.
And you can't teach that. You can teach someone to hustle if you really hammer it into him when he's 19 years old. You can't teach someone to have that quick first step.
Right. So he doesn't have that quick first step. And Wilco was saying, since he doesn't have that, you're either going to need to, because he said he doesn't have the greatest ball handling skills either, that he dribbles very high. So he says, you're going to need to set a pick for him every time. And in that case, subsequently, a lot of teams are going to be playing drop coverage because he can't hit a jump shot. Now, obviously, that's subject to change. His shooting form doesn't look horrible, but I feel like I think it was Jordy who said, we could develop these guys into shooters. This is something that they can work on. But if you're 19 years old playing at the highest level, you better be able to hit an open three better than a 28% clip. If you're a top 10, top 20 pick, and you're going to rely your whole organization's future on these guys. D-Rock is saying he hosted a draft party in the comments there. He said his brother and his best man are two Knicks fans. He said, and they were laughing at him all night. I jumped on that New York Post podcast. Those guys are Knicks fans over there. They were laughing all night too. So it just felt like they were the laughing stock of the night, and it doesn't matter if they're the laughing stock of the night. The only thing that matters is what happens in the future. But reality is, like, are we really? I'm excited for summer league, but am I geeked up for the regular season now? I don't know. They said that the contingency plan was that they have their pick in 2026. So we're going to be looking at another 55, 60 loss team. They'll compete under Jordy. They got a couple of guys. Like, they're making like sideways kind of moves in free agency, and we'll touch on that in a second. But even Jordy said it. Like, these young guys are going to have to earn their minutes. So are we going to be seeing a lot of these veteran players, Terrence Mann, Michael Porter Jr., like, are they going to be chucking 30 shots a game? Because then we're looking at 2024, 2025 all over again.
I mean, I kind of said it. Like, I didn't broadcast it too much because it's not news that people want to hear, but I think it was maybe a little bit naive of us to not expect the Nets to tank again in 2026. Like, and I know they don't tank. You know what I mean? Do what they did last year, like, more or less not be a good team, and kind of like understand that. We get greedy as fans, and we want to win, and we want to be in the limelight, but it takes a long time to build your team back up. Like, the Rockets are on top of the world. 4 years ago, they were starting like no-name guys. You know what I mean? So you can only base it off of what you've seen, and or you're the San Antonio Spurs, who get lucky every single year and get to go from Robinson to Tim Duncan to Kawhi Leonard to DeMar DeRozan and then Wemby. So annoying.
The Nets don't get that luck.
No, they get the opposite. Like, what other side of the equation is left? It's a curse between the two black and white / silver teams.
Yeah, right. Well, I do want to touch on free agency, but I want to ask you one last thing about the draft and get your thoughts on this. Especially, again, Dexter Henry, shout out. Brian Fonseca, shout out. 2 Nets Daily alum. They were nice enough to have me on their show after the draft. And something they asked me was, Pooch, like, what is successful in your eyes? Like, Dexter said the Nets need to get at least one all-star out of this 5. Or he said they need to get a couple. They need at least 3 need to become role players. And my answer was, if they all become role players, well, the Nets are doing exactly what they didn't want to do. They said, we don't want to be a 6 or 7 seed. If these 5 guys pan out to be role players, they're going to be a 6 or 7 seed. So what, in your eyes, in your perspective, what is successful 3-4 years down the line? That how many all-stars, how many role players? What are you looking at this group and kind of hoping that they become?
Yeah, I mean, Yegor's the highest pick. He has the highest ceiling. He does have great court vision. That's another thing you can't teach, despite my concerns about other things. So, yeah, shoot, you'd like to see him be an all-star one day, but I don't think I'm going to put that on all of them. I think the idea is that you got maybe like 4 high-end rotation players. The league is kind of getting away from star-led teams. Obviously a star is better than a role player. You want better players on your team than not as good players on your team. But I think the formula here was to get guys that are interchangeable, that they can start, they can come off the bench, you can do different things with your lineup. That's really where the league is going. It's just, how many different ways can I leverage the guys on my roster to attack teams in different ways? So I think that they just want to have starter level guys that can, give them that versatility on the court, like like 4 Dorian Finney-Smith types. I think they'd be down with that, because you got to base it on like where they were picking in the draft. I think if they were top 5, that all-star thing comes into play. But 8, you can still hope, but I still think you're just kind of trying to find good, steady rotation players, because 5 of those is a good thing to have.
Yes, but my one thing is their strategy, the like swinging for the fences and really going for it all with that Yegor pick. Like, I feel like with that strategy, you do need to try and find one star out of this. I'm saying he needs to be the next superstar of the league or the face of the NBA, but somebody for Brooklyn to get behind. Um, I wrote an article, and it's for better for worse. It's whether we agree with it or not, but the Brooklyn Nets are doing things their way, and they're making that clear. And this is going to be the testament to Sean Marks' tenure in Brooklyn, and maybe even Jordy's down the line too. You know, this group of guys, and maybe even next. This is it. This is the core of the Brooklyn Nets for the next at least 4 years. So
Yeah.
I'm totaling now 11 homegrown players on the roster, assuming Cam Thomas is back. So the Nets are getting what they wished for. Sean Marks has been very insistent also on building homegrown players, not just because they're going to be developed in their system, but also because they have the rights to their contract. That goes for the first contract. That goes for the second contract. All makes sense. They have 11 of them now. It has to work, Colin. So I do want to move over to free agency. The first moves that were made, they got Day back, Day'Ron Sharpe back on a 2-year, $12 million deal. I believe the second year is a team option. And they did the same thing with Zaire Williams for 2 years, $12 million. What do you make of those deals? You're happy to see those guys back. And what do you expect their role to be next year?
Yeah, no, I like them. I think the understanding was why they didn't extend qualifying offers was that they weren't going to get offers in restricted free agency that would have forced them to match that qualifying offer. They just would have signed it right away. So it looks like the Nets actually saved themselves some money. So smart chess move. Very glad to have those guys back. We have talked about Zaire. We talked about Day'Ron when the season ended. We really like to see them both back. But Day'Ron especially, I think all in all, was kind of my favorite player last year in terms of what I saw from him and kind of like his upside just like intrigues me. He really started shooting the ball. He's a very good passer. A lot of people don't know that if you don't watch all of his games. And I know he's well liked in the locker room. Nick Claxton hasn't requested a trade, but it just kind of feels like he doesn't want to be there. He I think it was Nets Kingdom tweeted a video out, and it was him playing George, running the floor, shooting the ball more, being a lot less. He was a lot more versatile with his game, a lot to do a lot more on the court than he does now. And he replied to it and then deleted it, but he said, "I miss the old me." So I don't know. I think between that and this kind of like feeling that he might not be here next year has just kind of made me think like, all right, I'm very intrigued. I guess what I'm getting at is the idea of Day'Ron Sharpe, take the leash off and let him play 30 minutes a night, 30 plus minutes a night, and let's just see what happens. Because, the Nets are not going to be a good team next year. They have their first round draft pick. I don't want to get into tanking talk in July, but, if you lose a bunch of games, there are worse things considering the position that you're in. So very happy they're both back. I think they earned it, and especially Day with that upside. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. I do think it kind of paves the way for them to move Claxton. Now you have you have Day'Ron Sharpe, you have Danny Wolf, and even Noah Clowney in the front court. The Nets are not going to roll with 3 bigs taller than 7 feet. Like if they do, it's very rare. It's not something that Sean Marks has done often in his tenure as GM of the Brooklyn Nets. So I saw even the Danny Wolf selection and bringing Day'Ron back as both were good moves. Really glad they brought Day'Ron back. I think the fan base had like this notion that like what are they doing when they didn't.
I was confused too.
Yeah, and understandably so. But I guess if you read the market and you understand, they're really not going to get much elsewhere. But somebody could have, like somebody like the Lakers or somebody could have swooped in and gotten him, right? A lot of these teams need a big man, and Day'Ron would have been a great project for someone else. But it's good to see him back in Brooklyn.
100%.
But their front court, they have a lot of players there, and I don't think Claxton fits anymore. Like I just don't think that between his body language last year, the frustrations, like I don't think he wants to play on a tanking team. Whether he has that right to feel that way or not, is up to your discretion. But if they could get anything for him at this rate, it was a good pick by Sean Marks. He had some good years in Brooklyn, but it kind of feels like, as I always say, might have overstayed his welcome at this point.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, I could very much see Nick Claxton being a part of a championship winning team with championship
Yeah,
winning defense, especially. It's just the Nets aren't on that timeline right now. So, kind of what happened with Cam Johnson. He did his best. I'll wish him well, and go somewhere where I feel like Claxton. He when he gets hot and he gets animated and competitive, that's when he like plays his best.
yeah,
Maybe not so much last year when he was knocking guys out, but at least going back to like the KD Kyrie years, and so yeah, I want that for him. He was a homegrown net when it didn't seem like the Nets were going to have a lot of homegrown guys. Like
right.
they were contending. If they drafted a guy, it was a late pick, and we didn't even know if he was going to be in the rotation or not because every game matters and super competitive and whatnot. So, no ill will toward Claxton. If this is it for him, I hope he goes to go to a contender like Cam Johnson right now.
Yeah, we hit on Zaire in the last episode, and I personally don't have too much to say other than I really liked what he did with the Nets last year. Love the type of player that he is. He's always going to play hard. He's always going to compete, and he kind of does a lot of the things that a lot of players don't do. So I like having that type of player. Is there anything you want to add on that? I mean, it's a 2 year, $12 million contract. Nothing extravagant.
Yeah, no, not really. I think he's just a good guy to have back in the building.
Yeah,
Continuity, even if it only is another year or maybe two more.
I agree. Now, right now, we're waiting on Cam Thomas. So he's a restricted
Hmm.
free agent. There's not a lot of money to be spent around the league, but I think a lot of people are wondering like what is taking so long. He's going to get lowballed by the Nets because other teams can't give whatever it is. I think personally speaking, I think Cam right now and his agent are probably speaking to other teams and weighing their options, not so that he can leave, but to see if anybody can offer anything. Like in the event, it's $18 million at this point. It looks like an overpay. Just again, given the market, not because of how I value him as a basketball player, but just the market itself. It's like it almost feels like the Nets are competing against themselves, but I think the stall is not on the Nets part. I think it's on him and his agent's part doing their due diligence and trying to get some type of offer to at least go back to Brooklyn and show Marks and say, "Hey, this is what we got. You got to match this." Otherwise, they're making up digits themselves, and they could really lowball him.
Yeah, I don't think they would have. They extended him a qualifying offer for a reason. I think they
Yeah,
want him back. They at least want the opportunity to bring him back. So I don't have too much to make of like the stalling. I think sometimes these things just happen, but they clearly showed that they're. I mean, they like Zaire, they like Dayron, but they rolled the dice and it paid off. The fact that they're holding on to the dice, they're not going to take a risk with Cam, tells me that they value him. So I don't think they would do that and then, especially with not a lot of cap space around the league, have another team put up an offer that then scares them away that they can't match. So I'm
yeah,
sure that news will hit in a couple days. We'll have to see. But
yeah.
yeah, I think it's just kind of people like when news hits right away, and that doesn't always do that. So
Right.
that's where we're at.
Well, we're only 2 days into this, 2.5, depending on how you measure it. But I do want to talk about the big trade. I think this is the one that really grabbed the headlines. The Nets
Yeah.
finally traded Cam Johnson in exchange for Michael Porter Jr. and a 2032 first round unprotected pick when Jokic is going to be, I think, 37 years old. What do you make of this trade? How do you grade it? Um, just overall thoughts from you, Colin?
Yeah, if I'm gonna slap a grade on it, I think I would give it a B, B minus. It's the Sean Mark special. We're eating salary to get back a pick. Seems like it's gonna be a high value pick because it'll be past Jokic's prime. And also I was concerned about how are they gonna fill up their cap space this year? And then when it comes off, like you want that money to come off ideally when you're good again and it's time to sign
Yeah,
free agents. The Nets were not good enough to go out and, sign some marquee guys and high end role players. So they kind of with Michael Porter Jr.'s contract, they're able to fill that requirement. They had to spend their $30-some million
Yep.
before the league started. So they did that, and he gets paid, I think, 30 something, 35 this year, and then it's 40 after because they won a championship. That incentive kicks in. So 2 years from now, his contract will come off, and it'll be a similar like Ben Simmons kind of thing where, all right, this is gone now, and we have all this spending power. So I think it made sense from a timeline thing. I think they got a good pick out of it. I think they sent Cam Johnson to a great place, which he totally deserves. I hated the flack he got last year from people who were mad at him for saying, we want to win. Like, these guys are competitors. This is their livelihood. Cam Johnson's not going to purposely brick a ton of threes so that
Right.
the team can tank better. And then, oh, whoopsie, he's out of the league. Like, that was such a ridiculous thing to be mad at him about. So glad he gets to go play on a team that is going to be really good next year. I think the only thing that keeps it from being an A is that, we don't know what was real and what wasn't, but it seems like maybe they could have gotten a little bit more. I think the talk around the deadline was that they were trying to squeeze 2 picks out of this.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing keeping me from giving it an A. But, good trade for both teams. So I'm pleased with it. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think good value trade for both teams. In essence, I kind of think like the Nets trade. It kind of feels like they traded Cam Johnson for Cam Johnson, right? Like you're still getting a solid
More
player back,
expensive. Cam
a more
Johnson.
expensive version. Something that we are underestimating with this whole contract thing is that Michael Porter Jr. only has 1 year after this. He's getting paid 38 mil this year, this upcoming season, and then 40 mil in the season after. So around that time, you mentioned the Nets got to strike while the iron is hot, and that's there's going to be a point where they're going to be chasing those championship aspirations and trying to build that type of team, and he's going to be coming off the books around that time that we expect them to be looking at free agents and looking at trades, which we often say 2027, right after this upcoming year where they have their own pick. Porter Jr. comes off after the 26-27 season. So he's got 2 years here.
Mm-hmm.
I think the timing is pretty aligned with the Nets timeline, right? Now, obviously, a lot of people calling on my replies and everything because I like the trade. I gave it a B+. You kind of snagged like quietly a potentially great pick. I know it's 7 years away, but it's going to be a high value pick for the reason I mentioned before. Jokic is going to be 37 years old. The Nuggets might not be who they are. Jokic might not even be there by then. We don't know. But,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people said, Pooch, that pick is in 7 years. Like, what does it matter what they, but the fact of the matter is that they're building more assets so that they can continue with this flexibility thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can trade these picks. I might not find it valuable in 2025, but I'm sure a lot of other GMs in the NBA find it valuable. And that was kind of my response was like, this is why I think it's a good trade because you get somebody back that aligns with your timeline, your contract, a new CBA, and you do get a pick out of it. It was never going to be perfect. I'm happy for Cam Johnson that he ends up in Denver. I'm going to root for him. I'm going to root for the Nuggets. I always do because of our boy Matt Brooks out there. But I don't know. It would be hard to really we'd be pulling at straws trying to criticize that trade so much.
Yeah.
So my biggest takeaway is that he's a free agent and comes off the books when the Nets are going to probably be looking to make some serious moves.
Yeah, that would have been. First thing I did was look at his contract when the trade news hit, because if it was 2 more years on top of that, it would have been like, all right, this is going to be a roadblock if they want to be good in 2 years from now. But it's not, so that's good. And the interesting thing about Cam, I feel like there hasn't been a guy that the Nets have traded and we've been able as a fan base to kind of wish him well in a really long time, whether it's because the player asked out or he underperformed or he went to a team that, the Nets don't like, or we're just envious. Like Kevin Durant left. Yeah, you're going to be pretty butthurt when a Hall of Famer leaves your team. He came here. He bought in at a time where he really, most pros, I don't think would have. Played his ass off. Smart dude. He was great with us. He was great with the media.
Yeah.
this is like it makes me kind of like warm inside that he's going to be able to,
Yeah,
go off and, he's happy. I think Nets fans are happy. And, if you're a Nets fan and the Nets are losing a ton next year, throw in a Nuggets game and root for him.
yeah,
I think
I
that's
agree.
valid.
I agree. He's one of the twins that didn't switch up on them. Like you said,
Yeah.
he was always a good character, always a good player for the Nets. I mean, he really, people could say whatever they want out of what they thought they could have gotten or whatever it might be, but I don't think anybody expected Cam Johnson to be this good this past season. That's
Yeah.
an ode to him. That's
100%.
an ode to the Nets. Like, tip my hat to all of them, and they were able to get some sort of value back. That Kevin Durant trade continues to look better by the day. You know,
Hmm.
for all the criticism that I give Sean Marks, he really nailed that KD trade, and we continue to see exactly how that trickle effect is coming. And it's going to continue as years go on. So you never want to lose Kevin Durant, never in any situation. But I think the Nets squeezed every last bit of juice out of that orange that they could. So
Well said.
it's July 2nd. It's too early. It's premature. But on July 2nd, 2025, who's your starting five for your Brooklyn Nets?
Yegor, Cam. I guess Michael Porter Jr. The point of next season is going to be to develop these guys, not to have Michael Porter Jr. lead us to the 10th seed.
Oh, you
But I
better
feel
get
like
ready, buddy. Him and
we'll
Cam
see.
Thomas might
See
be
what happens.
chucking 50.
That is going to be hilarious watching the two of them, their shot profiles. Right. I'm actually so excited. I don't even care if they don't win a lot of games. Just like being at the Barclays Center, like getting to watch that. This is like ball don't stops, like wet dream. Like they're just gonna be shooting the
Yeah.
lights, especially with all these pass heavy guys.
Right,
um,
right. Everybody passes. Nobody
but
can shoot
they're
the
gonna
ball besides them two.
at least the first like 2 months of the season. You do your veterans the solid, and you start them. You're not gonna
Yeah.
bring him right off the bench, so he'll be the 3. Let's do Clowney at 4. Dude, I don't know if here's the thing about Claxton. Again, this is all just like vibes that we're kind of getting, like acting like he's gonna get
Yeah.
traded. We made the same exact mistake with Cam Johnson last year, where we were like, yeah, like when is he gonna get traded? It took a whole extra year, so it's not a guarantee that he'll get traded. I think it's a coin flip.
Yeah.
I'll say they keep him for now. So Claxton at the 5, but Dayron's gonna get more minutes, not than him, but more than last year.
So after this year, Claxton's got 2 years left on his deal. It's a descending contract, right?
I'll look it up.
He's making $5 million this year. He makes $23 million next year, and then 20 the following. So I kind of agree with you that it's not a short thing that he's out of here, especially if Sean Marks feels like at the deadline or next summer, you could cut that contract's a little bit easier to move. And I think that is part of his negotiation tactics and how he builds these contracts is forward thinking more so than in the intermediate. So my starting five, I'm going to say Yegor is at like one, like interchangeable 1, 2, and 3 with Cam Thomas. I think Terrence Mann is going to start. I feel like Terrence Mann, my cousin played basketball for Terrence Mann's mother at New Haven, and like they have nothing but great things to say about him as an individual, and like just watching his game, like I feel like he is a good Brooklyn Net. Like he's got a good head on his shoulders. He plays hard. He kind of he does a lot of the scrappy things, and he could play multiple positions. So I think that we might be looking at a lineup where, at least at the beginning of the season, you're looking at Yegor, you're looking at Cam Thomas, and you're looking at Terrence Mann. 1, 2, 3, interchangeable, handling the rock. I don't know if there's such thing as a point guard in the Nets right now. I think it's just a matter of who's dribbling the ball past the half court line, right? I think it's going to be pass, pass, pass. They're going to be moving that ball so fast that it might not even be worth calling anyone a point guard. So,
yeah.
One more time, Yegor, Cam Thomas, Terrence Mann, Noah Clowney, and Day'Ron Sharp. They're a little curveball.
I said it was a coin flip. He gets traded, so that's the other side of it.
I'm curious to see what this guy Danny Wolf has got in the NBA because he's like a nifty player. He's very unique for a big man, and either he's an absolute bust and it doesn't work, and you say, all right, whatever, it's the 28th, 29th pick, or it applies to the game well, especially in a league where a lot of these evolving big men are they have eyes on the back of their heads. Like this guy showed that he could play make. Like I'm very intrigued by him, and I'm curious if he could find his way into the rotation somewhere.
He kind of gives the vibes. He kind of gives the vibes as a guy who will just like go off randomly in like game 3 of like the first round, 30 points, like 7 assists, and everyone's like, "Friggin' Danny Wolf cooked us," you know?
Yeah, he's one of those, like Drew Timme.
Yeah.
Wait, what am I talking about? Michael Porter Jr. is going to start at the 4, not Clowney.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I'm almost like Yegor, Cam Thomas, Terrence Mann, Michael Porter Jr., Day'Ron Sharp. That's my 5.
Yeah. I was stoked when they got Mann. I was stoked, and I was like almost kind of like bummed because I was like, I really like him as a player. He's a big guard. That's the profile the Nets seem to be after. I was almost bummed that we got him now. You know, like I would have loved to have him when Katie and Kyrie were here.
Yeah, he would have been that perfect player to slip in there, right? The Clippers version of Terrence Mann was solid. Like for a year or two, he was on a little bit of a tear of his own. So
he won them that game in the second round when they went to the Western Conference Finals when the Suns ended up beating them, but he went ballistic in like a game 6. I think that was his rookie year too.
Yeah. Well, for those of you in here, again, as always, we appreciate your support. We can't thank you enough. I know it's been a long week between the draft and free agency, but if you have any comments, questions, concerns, whatever it might be, now's the time to drop them. Otherwise, me and Collin are going to start wrapping this thing up. Collin, I do want to just get, again, like right now, you're a Nets reporter. You put your fan cap on. How are you feeling? Do you like the direction that the Nets are headed in? Without saying we can't judge, as of right now, how do you feel?
Confused. Yeah, I wasn't too high on the draft for the concerns I said before. I don't want to get into it too more because I don't like the idea of downplaying a bunch of kids. But yeah, I was a little confused after the draft. I think the moves in free agent thus far have been great though, so kind of conflicted. Again, I said it earlier to keep it positive. I look forward to be hopefully proven wrong about some things and keep doing taking on salary and dumping because it's Sean Marks special. It's a great way to keep building the team. So indifferent, confused, I guess, is how I feel right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you. Underwhelmed, confused. I think the draft really. Go ahead.
You can't be mad. You can't be mad. You know, even though were those picks that I would have made. No, me personally, but I don't know enough. I'm not watching every single guy's tape, and they haven't played a lick of basketball yet. So,
it's fair to say you're confused. It's fair to say you're underwhelmed. We watch this team every single game. You, I, Lucas, Bob, we all write about them every day. You know, we cover this team. We talk about them on the Brooklyn podcast. Like, it's our love for the sport. We're allowed to be critical. We're allowed to be fans. We're allowed to be reporters. That's what makes the game beautiful. The draft, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of concerns. Free agency, I feel like Sean Marks is kind of riding the line that he needs to. He's doing everything I expected him to do, as you said, absorbing contracts, taking in picks, and kind of unloading on these guys like Cam Johnson. So he's not wowing me. He's not disappointing me. It's everything we're expecting out of the Nets. There's a couple of holes they need to fill in, or better yet, questions they need to answer, which is specifically Cam Thomas. And I think that's the hot question right now. But again, before we sign off, I do want to give Iron Bird Eagle and D-Rock the love and respect to answer their questions, Colin, and then we'll call it at that. So we'll start with Iron Bird Eagle. He's asking, with Clowney, should fans set expectations to develop with this new draft class of guys? After 2 not so promising years, he's not sure that he has a lot of hope for him or Whitehead being on the roster in 4 years.
So what's the question?
I guess what he's trying to say is, do you, with all these young players on this team right now, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but with all these new young guys on the team, you have 5, 6, 7 of them. Mm-hmm. Does Noah Clowney kind of get lost in there? Does Dariq Whitehead kind of get lost in the shuffle?
I don't think so. I think it's on them, though, to make sure that they don't. If you want to stand out, if you want to get minutes, you got to earn them, like Jordy said. And it's kind of like, yeah, I was going to make the analogy where it's like, all right, like when you have like a kid and then you have like another kid and like the kid that is no longer the baby like gets jealous or whatever, like can't be like doing that. You gotta, not that I think they would do that, but I guess it's just like we as fans kind of like turn our attention to the babies, like to the younger guys. And Clowney and Dariq were the youngest guys in the draft, so the youngest guys in the NBA at one point in time. So it's not like they're not also raw prospects. So I'm sure they will be diligently taken care of. But if they want minutes, you got to earn it. So yeah, it's on you too.
And Jordy said that. I'll answer this quick, but I think I'm more skeptical about Dariq Whitehead than I am Noah Clowney.
Me too.
I think the Nets like Clowney a lot. They like his potential at that 3, 4, or even playing very small ball 5, where he could stretch the floor. But that's the most that I could really give you right now. Iron Bird Eagle, an absolute GOAT. So D-Rock, question for A. Pooch and Collin Hellwig. Who are the guys from last season that you want to see playing meaningful minutes next season?
Clowney and Dariq would be great. I think these questions are almost like kind of connected because you can live with a year of, like Seraph and like hopefully not Yegor because he was 8, but like and Danny White, like some of those later picks, spending some time in Long Island because they're a little bit more raw or whatever word you want to use. You want Clowney, you want Dariq they are older, they do have more experience under their belt to kind of start like getting those like in-game reps so that, they're good for it when the game does matter. I would be so pleased actually if Dariq Whitehead, became kind of like what we thought his ceiling was when he was at Duke, before the injury started, and really showed us that, he can do more than just shoot from the 3. So he's kind of the forgotten like prospect, understandably, because he's been hurt so much and he's had to deal with so much. So I definitely, he's the guy I would say I'm zeroed in on. But Clowney too, I want Day'Ron to get a ton of minutes next year. So I would say those 3.
Yeah. My one guy is Day'Ron Sharpe. I want to see him playing consistent minutes. I want to see him playing more than 20 minutes a game. We've never seen it in his 4 seasons. He's never averaged more than 18 minutes per game, and that was this past season in minimal time. So, his first 3 seasons he didn't play any more than 13 a game, and he, for several reasons, has a lot of upside that could be very valuable for the Nets now and going forward. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it really, really simple with Day'Ron. Keep it short. Junior Rudy, will the Nets rookie be in the NBA Rising Star game next year? Yegor will be in it, is my prediction. What do you think?
They got better odds than anyone else.
Yeah.
Got 5 rookies.
Yeah. One of them is bound to be there. And, who knows what they're going to do with the formatting this year. It's going to be international players. It's going to be USA players, whatever it might be. My bet is on Yegor. So we didn't mean to rush you guys out of here, but as always, a pleasure. We thank you for the support. If you're listening to this after the live show, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, concerns, whatever it might be, you could follow us at the Brooklyn Pod on X, on Instagram, TikTok. Email us at thebrooklynpod@gmail.com. We want to wish all you guys a happy 4th of July to your fans, to our fans, their families, your friends, all loved ones. And Summer League for the Brooklyn Nets kicks off on July 10th. So let's get pumped up for that. We're waiting for Cam Thomas's signing. But in the meantime, we're looking forward to Summer League. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Colin Helwig, always a pleasure. Anthony Puccio, checking off now.